Political parties in Nigeria are in election mode after the new date for the 2023 general elections announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission. This follows the signing of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill after several delays by President Muhammadu Buhari. The parties are now working towards presidential primaries between April and June this year. We'll have analysis. I'm Somna Sambo, and this is the Arise interview. Welcome to the show. Now, with the presidential and national assembly elections now readjusted to the 25th of February 2023 and the governorship and state houses of assembly elections slated for March 11, 2023, there's a race by political parties to meet up with the new election timetable by the Independent National Electoral Commission. INEC readjusted the dates and says the timely publication of the new timetable will enable all stakeholders in the electoral process to become conversant with its guidelines and provisions of the new Electoral Act law, which also will prepare the country for the next general election. Meanwhile, the Inter-Party Advisory Council has supported the request by the President to amend a section on the signed Electoral Act, which is said to be in contrast with the extant constitutional provisions. But how are political parties preparing generally after the new electoral law? Let's listen to IPAC.
The Commission decided to adjust the dates for the 2023 general election to ensure compliance with the provisions of the new law. Accordingly, the Presidential and National Assembly elections will now hold on Saturday, 25th February 2023, while the governorship and state houses of assembly elections will hold 2 weeks later on Saturday, 11th March 2023.
We share the views of the President on the clause which makes it mandatory for political appointees to resign from their positions before participating as delegates at political party congresses and conventions, or as aspirants to elective offices. To us in IPAC, this clause runs contrary to the provisions of Section 40 and 42 of the Constitution on the inalienable fundamental rights of every eligible citizen to participate in the electoral processes. Our members, the political parties, as strategic and key stakeholders in the nation's democratic project, it is incumbent on them to ensure strict compliance to the new Electoral Act by playing the game according to the rules.
Now, how will this new electoral law affect political parties, the entire electoral system? How can the political parties meet up with the set date by INEC, and how prepared are they to conduct their presidential primaries, especially, which is the major talk of town between now and June 3rd? Well, to answer all of this, I'm being joined by Yabagi Sani, who is the national chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council. It is the body of all political parties in Nigeria. You're welcome to the show, Yabagi Sani. And I just want us to actually just go to that press conference which you had earlier in the day. Yeah. You seem to be supporting Mr. President on the need to swiftly amend the new Electoral Act to allow those who are holding political positions, either as ministers or commissioners and all of that, to be able to be given some free hand to contest in party primaries and all of that. Do you think that this is realistic, considering how short the duration is between now and April, when party primaries are to begin?
Well, thank you, Salvador, for having me. The issue is that, we are practicing a constitutional democracy, and which means that whatever we do must be in tandem with the Constitution. And this is why we are very strongly behind Mr. President when he made his observations that Section 84, subsection 12, it is not in line with what the Constitution says, which is giving every citizen of this country that is of age, to participate, either to be elected or to elect, the person of his choice. So we feel that the National Assembly may be trying to see how they can sanitize the system as much as possible. But like I said, Rome was not built in a day. And the good thing here is that we have started, and we are starting on a very good footing, in the sense that with this electoral bill law that we have now, issues of the crisis that results in killings, in intimidation, snatching of ballot boxes, and all sorts of things that happen, will have no room, to exist anymore, because the results are not going to be counted at the polling units anymore. They will be transmitted, automatically, through the electoral, the gadgets,
means.
yes, that are going to be at the polling units, and by so doing, even the collection of the results will be electronically, carried out. So there's little or no influence of human beings. That's the manual interference with the process. And to that extent, I believe we can safely say that we are in line with the international best practice, in countries like Nigeria, where we are a leader. If we look at Nigeria from all perspectives, we are supposed to lead, and we are happy that Mr. President is leading the black race, because when you talk about Nigeria, you are talking about the black race, in the entire world.
Yeah.
So the issue now is that there are still certain very fundamental areas that this bill, does not, talk about, and we feel that as we go along, definitely those areas will have to be addressed.
Yeah, and I was being specific actually. If between now and April, when the party primaries are supposed to start, that section can be amended by the National Assembly as requested by Mr. President, because the lawmakers can actually say that there's actually no enough time, and then they may also not have enough quorum in both chambers of the National Assembly to be able to pass such a law.
No, this is something about democracy. It's about this country. It's about moving this country forward. And I know that our people in the National Assembly are passionate, people who want this country to be great, who want some of the things that we want to do away with, by this bill. They are not also happy that such things are happening. So, and I could see the body language, when Mr. President was signing, that bill, and the kind of comradeship, that existed, that they were happy that Mr. President at least is signing the bill, and I'm sure they must have agreed to certain conditions, under which, Mr. President signed
behind the cameras.
Behind the cameras,
okay,
yes.
Very interesting.
But I believe that it is for this country, because we need to move forward. It is true that Mr. President has sworn, to defend the constitution of this country, and if there's anything that is against that constitution, he has the right to reject it. He has to reject it, in fact, as a matter of
constitutional
yes,
powers.
Constitutional powers. So, and they also agree that yes, this is not in line with the Constitution. What they want to achieve, which is already in the Constitution, but not in the way that they are bringing it out now. What the Constitution says is that 30 days to the elections, you have to resign if you are a political appointee.
Whether you're a minister, commissioner,
whatever.
or
yes,
special advisor,
exactly.
and all of that.
But they have brought it, to even before the process, begins. That is the primaries.
Yeah, because so many governors have in the past abused it, where they have so many of these political appointees as delegates. And so that is the mischief that the lawmakers were trying to resolve. And they're like, the party should be allowed to have its own delegates, and not the governors or even the president populating the delegate list with political appointees. Don't you think that law is actually good for the country?
It is good. You can even stretch it by saying that if that is the case, if you don't want political appointees to be part of the process, what about the elected president, a sitting governor, a sitting senator, who, if he wants to go for the second term, will still remain, on his seat.
But that is elected.
Elected, yes, but
not appointed.
Elected doesn't mean that he doesn't have the influence, to change things, one way or the other, because he has privilege. I mean, of having some information, the paraphernalia of power, control over the process itself, because in most cases it is Mr. President who will say, okay, he will give approval to even INEC before they even begin the process, like in the case now. So you see, we are on a journey, and quality is not a destination, it's a journey. So I'm sure as we move on, we will, incrementally, be increasing, fine-tuning it, and then make it something that at the end of the day everybody will be happy with, to that extent. So I think time is okay. The time you're talking about, they have a sufficient time, because this is not something new to them. It's a question of they convening, coming together and do the needful.
And the good thing is that the president says he can assent to this very swiftly.
Exactly.
Now let's talk about other provisions of this Electoral Act that was signed. The Electoral Act 2022 gives INEC a very important power here, which is that any result that is declared under duress, the INEC can revisit it. Can you tell us, as the body of political parties, how this will change the game, considering what has happened previously?
Well, I believe it's a step in the right direction, and an important one for that matter, because like I told you, before this time, people, intimidation, use of money in an obscene manner, and then killings, even to that extent, normally takes place. So now, if you go and do any of these things, INEC can say that this is not in line with the normal process that,
including pointing a gun to an INEC official,
to INEC official and things like that. So those things now, somebody will have to think twice. It's either you want your election to be nullified, or you just want to waste your time, in harassing, intimidating the INEC official, and then I think going forward too, it will be something that I think we have to bring. I keep talking about the money, vote buying and things like that. It's so inimical to the process, believe you me. And even the so-called developed economies, developed democracies, they don't joke when it comes to the issue of using money. They are very serious about it, because if you are not, the stakes are so high, and people, that propensity for people to use, whatever they have as power, at their disposal, and money is one of them. So if you want a level playing field for everybody, we must wake up. Mr. President should revisit this issue. ICPC is there, EFCC is there, the police is there. We have law against money laundering. We have laws against vote buying. Nobody has been brought in front of to the court for them to be.
So and you think this new law will do that?
No, I'm saying that the laws are already there. It's just enforcement. And even this new law that we have, enforcement also has to come, which means it's not yet uhuru. It's not that we are there just by mere passing of the bill, everything will just automatically fall in place. No, the president has to go a step further by ensuring that his security agencies, who he appointed, do their own, their own side of the story, which means they have to enforce. People have to be punished when they are caught doing these kind of things, to serve as deterrent, so that we can get the benefit of this bill.
I will ask you to hold on here, and we'll go on a short break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. You're still watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Sumner Sambo, and we're discussing the new Electoral Act that has been signed by President Buhari, the key provisions there, how political parties are getting set to start the preparation for the next general election after the timetable released by the Independent National Electoral Commission. And I still have with me here Yabagi Sani, who is the national chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, which is the body of all political parties in the country. Thank you for still staying with us. And now, one of the key provisions of this new electoral law that we have is that political parties are to commence party primaries early. And so, based on the timeline that we have right now, the hottest one, which is the presidential primaries, will hold from April to June. And during this period, some people who haven't declared their ambition to aspire for the office of the presidency seem to have been taken aback. But tell us how political parties, which you represent, are actually preparing in the midst of the new INEC timetable.
Well, like Sumner, this electoral law, it's been in the workings for quite some time. We've been waiting for this. We know most of the things that are contained in the law, in the act. So it's not it's not taking us by surprise. Because and the good thing is that it has given the parties now long time to sort out all these problems that in most cases are carried over to even after the elections and things like that. So we have enough time now. The courts have enough time to clear all these
pre-election cases, which usually have a big challenge against the main
exactly. And if you observe, most of the cases that we have had, in the conduct of elections are pre-election, cases. So enough time has been given now, and I'm sure the courts will also rise to the occasion and ensure that they finish these cases before the election proper.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing, and like we have said before, IPAC really is happy because the political parties are giving ample time now to sift through and then make sure that we get it right, and that I again must commend Mr. President, because gradually Mr. President is becoming the hero of democracy, especially
not after all the delays.
Yeah.
Eventually he has picked up.
Well, I think we must give it to him that God has so blessed him that he has this opportunity to put his name, write his name in gold, in the annals of history of this country, as far as democracy is concerned. And democracy is about everything, because if we can't get the recruitment of leadership right, forget about all the other problems we're talking about.
Now let's talk about the
specific
provisions there. It says that every political party shall not later than 160 days, that's 6 months prior to election day, submit the list of the candidates who must have emerged from valid primaries conducted by the political party to INEC. That's under this now, how do you think political parties would be able to play around this game in such a way that they do not have a challenge with the candidates emerging? How do you think there will be a fair ground under 6 months for all of this to happen?
No, it gives us ample time to not only conduct the primaries, but also to ensure that the candidate you are bringing is fit, meaning that he meets the constitution, the requirements of the constitution, that things like his certificates, his age, the other things that normally after because these things are done in a hurry, within a very short span of period.
It used to be done in a hurry, but
exactly.
now you have 180
and not only do you have enough time, you also have a process that now you can sit in the comfort of your office and then go to INEC portal and then submit the documents on behalf of the candidate that you are submitting to INEC. So there's no manual process that takes
or even someone hijacking the manual document when you're taking it to INEC office.
Exactly. Or somebody somewhere goes and then submit to INEC and and then there's a confusion that this is not what we submit, or INEC will say you didn't submit, and then
talk about political parties who have also problems with their leadership, where you hear some people saying that they have an ESCO, a faction, and this group said they went to submit to INEC. This other group said they went to submit to INEC. But when INEC recognizes the national chairman and the national secretary of a political party, does this mean now that there is no any other faction that can submit the names of candidates to INEC?
Exactly, because you have to have those privileges. That is to
like the passwords to the portal.
Exactly,
and all of that.
Yes, to be able to open the portal and then submit. And if you are not the one recognized by INEC, then there is no way you can submit. So not only is it more time has been given, but the environment under which is going to be conducted now is also very highly organized, and then have recourse. You can the parties are in charge totally, as the case is. So I think it's a very good thing that we are having in this country in terms of how we conduct elections in this country. What remains is enforcement of some of these laws that affects the processes, because the issue of violence, the issue of use of money, it's critical.
Well, and you keep talking about this
because look at the election. Look at the off-season elections we just had. Money was used.
Even just this Saturday that passed, it was still an issue.
And then the security agencies will turn a blind eye, as if it's not happening.
But so let's be realistic. How do the security agencies tackle some of those issues?
No, I'm recommending.
When you see people, party agents, or even the voters going to even solicit for monies before they vote.
Yeah, but we must understand that the conditions, is such that people will have no alternative but to see how they can meet their immediate, needs, which is the kind of poverty that the country has been thrown into. So, but that notwithstanding, we must understand the fact that this process, if done correctly, will address these issues that have made people to become so submissive, and then willing to be criminalized, in the manner that some politicians do. So the police, I'm recommending, I know they were talking about these body cameras that police, if you're afraid that if I go to them, they will maybe, lynch you or something like that, your cameras are there, you are recording everything that is happening. And then, so I want government to seriously tackle this issue, because we have a condition that if we do not address it, all the things we are talking about, believe me,
but we've also seen when the government, the ruling party that's housing the government right now is also being alleged to be guilty in this sort. It's a very tough one for the country.
It is for the country, but I think Mr. President does not have any collateral interest, in what is going to happen in the next elections.
Are you sure he doesn't have an interest in ensuring that his own party comes to power? Wouldn't he want to have a successor? If you were the one, wouldn't you do so?
Other parties are Nigerians, and I'm sure that nobody will become the president of this country and will not preserve the integrity and the record, what Mr. President has achieved. It's only to build on it. Nobody, you have seen all the past presidents, none of them has been humiliated or, given any kind of treatment that you will say, I don't know what may happen now if I'm not in power. Look, President Goodluck is not in power, but he's given the highest, respect that you can ever think that he can ever get. So Mr. President should not be under any fear that if the person that emerges as next president is not from our party, maybe I'm not to enjoy, the paraphernalia or the kind of respect, that I should have. Not at all, And as a senior citizen of this country, a past president, I think. Everywhere in the world is the only way it becomes too obvious and too much that you find.
You know that very well. You are a former presidential candidate yourself.
Yes,
so I'll just ask you to hold on while we go on another short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about how political campaigns will also begin in earnest. Very quickly, based on this new electoral law. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Horizon TV, where we speak to the newsmakers as well as ordinary people doing extraordinary things around the world and featuring the voices at the heart of the conversations. I'm Somna Sambu. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari signed into law the Electoral Act Amendment Bill just last week. The new electoral law has key provisions. And to take a look at some of these provisions, we've had Yabagi Sani here, who is the national chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council. And I'm being told that we'll be joined by Oluwole Osaze-Uzzi later on, who is the former director of voter education and publicity at the Independent National Electoral Commission. And I'll come back to you. Let's talk about the provisions that actually provides for early commencement of campaigns. We hope to have presidential campaigns commence from September. So you have from September till February. Unlike before that we'll just have maybe like 2-3 months and then you just rush. This time around, how do you think this new provision will help to engender better democratic values, send a better message to the electorate, and make the electorate question their presidential, governorship, and then senatorial House of Rep, candidates very well?
Yeah, of course. Anything you do in a haste, definitely ends up with a lot of shortcomings, and then now that INEC has given so much time, for campaigning, I think it will afford the candidates now, opportunity of meeting, the electorate, and then understanding what the electorate really need, and the electorate also to know the kind of person they want to, cast their vote for. It's also very important because you will now have time to sell your manifesto, to the people. You'll be able to tell them, what you want to do for them, and they'll be able to ask you questions as to how you want to go about achieving some of these things. You remember the kind of debates that's normally organized is so,
always very ad hoc. All the presidential debates very quick.
Very quick. Yeah. So now you have the time to take on, the candidates one after the other, and really grill them. Let them tell Nigerians what they have to offer. Not the question of just coming that, I want to grow the economy. How do you want to grow the economy? How are you going to ensure that this whole-scale stealing that is going on, especially in the choicy sectors of the economy, like oil and gas and the mineral, solid mineral, and other sectors of the economy, how are you going to address them? Because it matters. We can't be piling up loans that we cannot pay, and then very soon we become a colony of some countries that were coming here, to take money from us. So I think it's important that the issue of economy is addressed. The campaign should now be issue-based. It's not abusing somebody or saying that I'm ready to do this or do that. No.
But are the electorate actually prepared for issue-based campaigns? So, because sometimes you discover that you have been a candidate yourself.
Yes.
You want to bring to the table issues for discussion, but the electorate just seem to be focusing on the frivolous issues. The issues that don't directly affect their lives. And then how do you think that even the media what role should we play to ensure that the people actually focus more on the messages, the critical messages, and not the periphery messages that tend to distract voters? Especially
now that we have these sentiments that really have nothing to do with good governance. Good governance. You talk about the religion, somebody's religion. You talk about his region.
Are you talking about zoning?
Zoning and things like that.
But I think it has always been there in our politics.
It's always been there. Nobody says you shouldn't have those out of the box thinking that perhaps can address some of the shortcomings in our democratic.
Well, we've always had the North and the South right from 1960.
It has been there.
Seeing Tafawa Balewa coming from the northern part of the country, you had Zik to balance him.
Yes.
Isn't this to stabilize our democracy?
Balancing can be done, but you must take into cognizance the fact that you are talking about how to solve problems that are really bedeviling the country as it is today. Issues of insecurity, issues of the economy itself. These are real issues that you must bring people that have the knowledge, the ability to think out of the box, the grasp of what exactly are we talking about running this 21st century economy. It's not enough to say that I want to balance. If I have Mr. A from the north and Mr. B from the south, it's enough because I've taken care of the sentiments of north and south. Where has it taken us to? Nowhere really, if you look at what is happening today. Take, for instance, Mr. President, President Buhari, the most devastated, state today in terms of insecurity is Katsina State. The most devastated region today in this country is the north.
So producing a president is not enough.
The most backward region in terms of economy in this country today is the north. So don't get confused yourself and say if I take the presidency to my zone or to my state or this thing will solve your problem. It has not worked. So let us wake up today and then really face the real issues of who has the capacity, who has the track record, who really can communicate, who can really connect with the international community in terms of bringing those investments that we need. Because this country is a great opportunity. It has a great potential. People are there wanting to come to invest because we have what they need. But what you don't have is the leadership that we're supposed to have. That's why I say we commend Mr. President, President Muhammadu Buhari, for signing this bill into law, because it will begin to correct all those things that have hindered emergence of credible leadership in this country.
Yeah, but I also told you that we need to talk about the attitudinal position of the electorate, the voters. Most times you come around with these lofty ideas, you go around campaigning and they'll tell you, just bring the money. We don't want to listen to these messages because politicians have failed us in the past. Don't you think that plays a great role too. When people don't want to even listen to what you have to say, they just ask you to bring the money.
We have countries that have gone through what you are talking about, that the electorates are just like what you are saying, asking only for money. They don't care about your programs and what have you. Look at China. Before this time, you look at Singapore or Malaysia or something like that. They had all the problems that we are battling with today. But once you manage to have the right leadership, things changed automatically. Immediately.
And if you were a presidential candidate, how would you convince Nigerians to listen to you?
Well, the way to convince Nigerians is to take them to look at themselves. Look at yourselves. Are you better off 10 years ago, where you are? No. The answer is no. So it doesn't mean that I have to have a Hausa man or a Yoruba man or Igbo man to solve my problem, because this money they are giving me today, cannot, in fact, it aggravates, your problem. Because when you take it, it puts you under some illusion that you have money. But 24 hours later, you are poorer than what you were before, and you have already by that time sold, your future to somebody that you don't even know. So I know that we have a problem, but that problem can be solved if, like you rightly said, the press, can set the agenda. The press can of course mold the opinion and then the thinking of the people. That's why they are there, to inform, to mold people and then try to see how people think in the right direction by way of information you give to them about the candidates. If the press too does not get carried away by money that will be chunked out to them, if you now try to see how you can really bring out the candidates that you believe can really do the job, sell that to the people.
Ours is to present the candidates to the public. It's left for the, to the voters to actually elect their president.
No, look at what happened in America.
Ours is a mid-course
look at the last election you had in America. It is the press that really, defeated, Trump. It's not Biden. It is the press. They saw that there's a need to really change, the administration they had. And the press swung into action, and they did it. Who says it cannot be done here? It can be done. The press is powerful.
Well, we've always played that role.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the role of technology in this election. How do you think that INEC is going to be better in terms of performance in 2023 based on the new provisions that allow use of smart card readers, electronic, transmission of election results? How do you foresee all of this use of technology helping INEC to deliver a much more acceptable election result at the end of the day?
I think Nigeria is lucky to have the INEC chairman in person of Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, that is at the helm of affairs of INEC, because this is somebody who is a very cool-headed, gentleman. He has this focus on the ball, eyes on the ball, and he's bringing in innovations that are really, really revolutionizing the process in the right direction. So we are really happy that we have him, and IPAC is on the same page with him to support him to succeed, because innovations, as we had card reader before, but it wasn't taken into cognizance when it comes to the issue of the law. So, but the card reader, the beavers, and everything now that you have, they are now covered by the law.
But we've seen the beavers actually having some shortcomings too.
Yeah, well,
in some of these elections. How have you been conversing with INEC to ensure that
the time that we have now to do all these things? I'm sure INEC themselves, from our interaction with them, they are continuously assessing the process and see how they can get it, to be near perfect. You can't get a 100% perfect situation in any case, but we believe that this INEC recommends itself, for 100% support, so that we can move away from where we have been, which is something that you are not proud of. So they are working, believe you me, and we are seeing the results of what they are doing. Yes, you might have some hitches, in the devices, which is normal. Even in America, if you remember, they are also battling with the issue of the gadgets and things like that. Russia interfering with their system. This one, doing this, that the votes are not what should be. So no country today can say they have 100% perfect, electoral process.
Yeah, but
INEC here is doing quite a lot, and I think.
But sorry to interrupt you. What do you make of a serving minister under this government in the last FCT council elections, which was like just 3 weeks ago, actually saying that they should go back to the use of manual processes of voting because the beavers failed. I mean, we had Ramatu Tijani, who is the Minister of State for the Federal Capital Territory, asking INEC to consider that option on the day that some of the council chairmen elect were being sworn in. Do you think we should go back to that route of introducing manual voting on the day of election when beavers fails?
No, I don't think so at all. You know, it's not. It's just some kind of frustration that made her to make that statement. And I believe that with the situation that we have now, and with what INEC is trying to do by ensuring that they subject these machines to trials, a kind of rehearsal, to testing, over and over again before they now deploy people to supervise these elections or to use the machines for these elections. I think when you look at what we have gotten from the introduction of beavers and what we used to have before, believe you me, it's a much better system to try to perfect. No country talks about going back to the manual system. We know the manual system is always
when you have
fraughted
politicians who feel that the system didn't really help. I mean, understand.
Well, that's a personal opinion that she was hearing, and I'm sure it was because of the frustration. And like I said,
some voters couldn't actually vote on election day because of these technical glitches by the beavers.
I'm not holding forth for INEC, but it's not only in this country that happens. Even in America, there were people that said they were not able to vote, that they put their votes, in the mail, and they said, so many things happen.
So it's still within an acceptable margin.
I think so, yes, it's acceptable.
The number of those who couldn't vote because of these technological glitches, say is within acceptable margin.
It was an acceptable margin because we must move forward. We can't go back. It's not possible. We can't go to stone age. We can't go to a situation where you don't have any recourse. You can't. It's like anything goes. We can't go. We can't do anything goes. It's too serious. A business that you will allow it to be continued. With the manual process, which is fraughted with a lot of shortcomings, abuses, and things like that. This one, at least you can say, okay, it's not working, and perhaps some ideas can come as to how to address such issues where a whole constituency is about to be differentialized. You can't accept that. I'm sure something can come.
Yeah, but that's why we also have that provision that if the quantum of votes that were not voters that were not allowed to vote because of these technological glitches can affect the overall outcome, then INEC will go back to the field again. Yes. We've seen that happening every now and then. Yeah. And one of the key areas I want you to talk about when we come is the funding for INEC. If political parties are happy about the requirement for at least INEC to get its funds 1 year before election, and if you think that this government can actually meet up as we head to the 2023 general election. But I would just want you to hold on while we go on break. You're still watching the Arise interview. The conversation continues when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Somna Sambo. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari signed into law the Electoral Act Amendment Bill just last week. Now, the new electoral law has key provisions, and to take a look at some of the provisions, we are joined by Oluwole Osaze-Uzzi, who is the former Director of Voter Education and Publicity at the Independent National Electoral Commission. And I also still have in the studio Yabagi Sani, who is the Chairman, Interparty Advisory Council here in Nigeria. And I welcome you, Osaze-Uzzi. Now, let's talk about the provision for funding INEC 1 year before election. Considering the challenges we had before the signing of this law, do you think that the government can quickly just do something about that and the INEC is able to get these funds in quantum to be able to pursue this 2023 election successfully?
Well, thank you. We all agree that prompt funding, adequate and prompt funding of the Commission is a necessity for credible elections. There's no point, the days of INEC going cap in hand to the Minister of Finance and the presidency are long gone. But just to actualize this, that's why part of why it has been embedded in the Electoral Act now. But the good thing is that in the 2022 Appropriation Act, there is provision for some funding of the commission preparatory to the 2023 elections. So parts of the funding, I believe, has been budgeted for. I can't say as of today whether
in terms of releases,
whether all expenses have been, all the appropriated sums have been released or not to the commission. Only the commission can speak about that. So basically, and we have less than 1 year to the next year's election. So for us not to run afoul of the law, the budget has been sent by INEC probably to the budget office and to the presidency, and as a matter of dispatch dealt with by the National Assembly, because the sine qua non for good elections, and we must comply with the provisions of the law, because the law took effect last week Friday when it was signed into
very interesting, especially so that we don't have ballot papers still left in some countries like it used to happen in the past.
Absolutely.
Now let's talk about some of these provisions. The aspect that interests me most about INEC's new powers is that it can review election results declared under duress. Tell us how this used to affect previous results, especially when you have some gunmen pointing gun at INEC officials here and there.
Indeed. For a while now, we've had instances of returning officers being compelled to declare results, either under duress or under threat of violence or actual violence. Sometimes they have been kidnapped. I recall a few years ago, not this last time, but about 2 cycles ago, a by-election in Imo, and somebody was kidnapped, the officer was kidnapped and taken to the studio, taken to the studio to make an announcement. The wrong place. He was taken to the studio to make an announcement, and he was recorded saying that, and they were way behind him, out of the purview of the cameras. These things were being, it was unjustifiably made a return. The same thing it happened in Ondo State as well. That was a long time ago. That was about 2008 or thereabouts, 2009. But in the last election, we've seen on a grander scale that at least 2 senatorial districts in Imo that were adversely affected by such things. One, the returning officer said so to the hearing of the media. You covered that extensively, where he said, "Look, I'm being forced to make a declaration under duress. I've been threatened, but I'll make a declaration, but it's not my declaration, basically." Now, the Electoral Act, even in 2010 Act, presupposes that a declaration is a product of a process, not something you do under duress. If a marriage is conducted under duress, if a party compels a spouse to do a marriage, that marriage will be annulled. Don't go for divorce. You annul it because it's not a free will consent given. The same thing as any other thing. Anything that duress vitiates a contract. There's no contract. It's voided. So the same thing is now applicable to the electoral process. You recall that a 7th senator had to go to court. 2. INEC said, "We withdraw your certificate." But the court said, "Well, INEC, under the Electoral Act as it was 2010, as amended, sorry, you have no power to withdraw. Once it is issued, only a tribunal can cancel or withdraw that certificate." So it is to cure that mischief. That is why this proposal was made, and I'm so pleased. One of the most groundbreaking proposals in the new Electoral Act 2022, that INEC has a power to review that result if the returning officer makes a declaration that it was done under duress, or if a returning officer is compromised and does things contrary to the law and the guidelines, then they will look at it and say, no, it's happening anymore as well. Another senatorial district.
Okay, very interesting development. And Yabagi, I'll come to you. The idea of some people being in INEC and being members of political parties has been addressed by this same law too, saying that any person who is working in INEC mustn't be a member of any political party. I mean, that's what everyone should think.
Yeah.
But tell us how this new provision can help to engender more confidence in the electoral process, knowing that everyone who is there is not a member of APC, PDP, or including your own party. Yeah. But even in the recent light of what has been happening with the with INEC National Commissioner screening and confirmation at the National Assembly, we still had APC saying, PDP accusing the APC of having one person as being a member of the APC, a card-carrying member. How do you think all of this will be settled by this new law?
Well, I believe it's a process, which we have already embarked upon to sanitize the process, sanitize the whole electoral, environment, so that we at the end of the day we get something that people can believe in, and then will be reliable. But the issue is this. The question you ask yourself in this country is that there are not many people that were not once a member of one party or the other. There are not many. So I think perhaps, the enforcement of such law may probably require more than just a pronouncement that this man was a member of Party A, maybe some few years ago, and then for that reason he's disqualified. So I think the provision is very good. It's very good because it's aimed at ensuring that you have a credible result, which is not influenced by somebody being biased. But we need to do a little more, in terms of not trivializing the whole thing, and then making the nonsense of the appointments, of some individuals, calibers that by their own track records and the temperament and then the public service record or things like that. So you don't lose an important element for something that perhaps
very
is not here nor there. So
sorry to cut you short. As you try to round off this conversation, I'm sorry we don't have enough time. I just want you to talk about how the use of technology will deepen transparency in the electoral process with this new electoral law that gives INEC almost like a blank check.
We've seen how technology has helped our process, right from the days of the card reader. We saw the improvements that technology has brought into the process, how it has made it more transparent. Even before the signing of the bill, we saw that in Edo, in Ondo, and subsequent by-elections, people have been tracking results real-time and online from anywhere in the world. So once the results is released, it's uploaded to the result viewing portal. And people have seen that one, so it increases and enhances transparency. And also, we saw the problem from some of the governorship elections where the Supreme Court said, look, this card reader is not known to, it's as good a device as it is, it's not known to the law. And you can use it, but when it comes to computing the official results, you cannot factor it into that because the law says you tick the manual process. So now that has been cured by the use of the term smart card reader or any other technological device. So because I think INEC has done away with the smart card reader now.
That's why I was surprised when I saw smart card reader. That other provision actually
during the times of debating the bill, we informed the committees and the National Assembly about this, but in their wisdom, they okay, leave it, and that's why they put that phrase or other technological device, because technology is so vibrant and so fluid. All the time it's improving, and I'm sure maybe by the next cycle of elections there might be another device that's better, because the BVAS does everything the card reader does and more. Not only does it accredit, it also transmits results, and I know it can be enhanced to do.
Yeah, I saw a demonstration of it myself, and it's impressive. INEC has really done well. Well, unfortunately, we do not have enough time. I would have really loved to hear so much from you, but we hope to have you on other shows on Arise News. Oluwole Osaze-Uzzi, former INEC Director of Voter Education and Publicity, and Yabagi Sani, who is the National Chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council. We must thank you for taking time to enlighten us on how the players, the political parties themselves, are getting set to make use of this law alongside INEC. Well, that's how it's been for this edition of the Arise interview. Do join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Goodbye and thank you for watching.